morning. In the class today, we will look at the rate of energy release from explosions. Rather, what we look at is maybe dE by dt. That means, if the rate of energy release is E, we are looking at the rate. If you recall, in the last class, we looked at the energy release. We just looked at the energy which is released in joules. Today, we want to find out the rate at which it is getting released. Let us qualify this. Why do we want to do this? Supposing we have, let us say in this figure, the x axis represents the time, the y axis represents the rate of energy release dE by dt, say in so much joules per second, which is equivalent to a watt. What we say is, well, the energy release of a given magnitude could either take place in a very short period, or it could take place over a prolonged period, such that this is the total energy which is released, that is the area under the curve, this is the energy which is released, and therefore, we say, well, the energy released, if the time of the first type of energy release 1 is over a period, let us say 0 to tau 1, in the second case it is 0 over a period to tau 2 over here. Well, we say energy release is equal to 0 to tau 1 of, let us say, E naught dt. In the first case, this is the area under this curve. In the second case, it is over a prolonged duration, that is, it is equal to 0 to tau 2 of E 0 into E dot into dt. You know, when the energy gets released over a longer period, what happens? Much of the energy gets into heating the medium, and it is not really available to drive a blast wave. And you recall, we had said that maybe to drive a blast wave, you need spontaneous energy release and late energy release is manifested more as thermal energy, and we call this energy which gets wasted as waste energy. Why waste energy? It is not available to drive the blast, maybe from blast considerations, well, it is a waste. Therefore, our aim is to find out E naught, and we are also interested that the energy is available as a spurt. Mind you, let us take a look at this figure again. Let us say if I have E naught in watts as a function of time, we said, well, the energy release could be like this. We are looking at an effective value. This is the effective duration of energy release, and this is what we want. We want this time to be as short as possible. Therefore, in today's class, compared to what we did on the total energy, we take a look at this particular time, that is the characteristic time of energy release, and the value of dE by dt. This is what I will be doing today. Having said that, let us go back, let us take some examples so that we can understand this and do it better. Supposing we have something like methane. You know, methane was there in the greatest man-made explosion ever, when methane diffused with air and formed an explosive, let us say when the two trains went by and created turbulence and mixing. We say, well, methane, let us assume that it burns with oxygen, because I am not interested in calculating energy. We know how to calculate the energy for stoichiometric compositions, for fuel rich compositions, for fuel lean compositions. Let us just take the case of maybe it reacts with oxygen, and let us say I have completely burnt products of combustion. In this case, I have CO2 and H2O. I want to balance this reaction. I find, well, 1 mole of oxygen produces a mole of carbon dioxide and water. Is it possible? Therefore, I say, well, I have 1 atom of carbon forms CO2 here, 1 mole. I have 4 of H2. I said it is all stoichiometric products. Well, I get 2 H2O. I have 1 O2, 2 O here, 4, that is 2 O2. Therefore, in the reaction of methane with oxygen, I have CH4 plus 2 O2, giving me 1 mole of CO2 and 2 moles of water. If I want to do this problem for energy release, well, we know how to calculate the energy release. We say, well, heat of reaction is equal to 1 into we found that if the products have a lower heat of formation compared to this, well, energy is released, and therefore, I should have got started with a minus sign. I am looking for a decrease such that the energy release is positive, into 1 into heat of formation of CO2 plus 2 into heat of formation of water heat of formation of water at the standard condition minus the heat of formation of the reactants, which is equal to 1 into heat of formation of methane, plus I have 2 moles of oxygen. Therefore, 2 into heat of formation of oxygen over here. This is the net heat which is given, which is available in the reaction, and therefore, I know well it is an element, I do not need to consider it. Let us put the heat of formation of these substances. If I say methane, the value of heat of formation of methane is minus 75, therefore, minus 1 into 75 minus over here. I have heat of formation of carbon dioxide is equal to 393.5 with a minus sign, that is 1 into minus 393.5 plus 2 into heat of formation of water is 286.7 minus 286.7. Well, this is the value of the energy release with a minus sign, and therefore, I get plus 393.5 plus 2 into 286.5, minus and minus becomes plus with a minus sign, therefore, minus 75, and the heat of this reaction works out to be 892 kilojoules. Well, this was a stoichiometric reaction, we got this heat. Now, in today's class, I am not looking at the heat which is generated, I want to find out the rate, dHr by dt is what I want. Therefore, we look at this reaction again and tell what causes this reaction. Well, I have something like, if I were to erase this the way we calculated the heat of formation and just put this below the reaction. Well, I tell myself I have carbon, methane is equal to all straight chain, it is an alkane, it is something like this. I have 2 moles of oxygen, some bonds are there, I am not really looking at double bond, triple bond, I just say 2 oxygen atoms are joined together in this. Well, I have one CO2, CO over here, I have 2 moles of water, well, I have H over here, both forming water over here. Well, this is the reaction. And to be able to form this reaction, what is it we do? Well, the structure of this particular methane and structure of O is such that the molecules have to individually collide with each other. That means, all the molecules in 1 mole of methane in 2 moles of oxygen have to collide with each other. They have to knock out, C has to be knocked out from this, and this C has to combine with 2 of O to form CO2. Maybe similarly, H has to be knocked out, 1 H and 1 H have to combine with oxygen to form water, and therefore, if I look at the path by which a reaction is going to happen, then in that case I have to consider individual molecular collisions. But when I looked at the heat of formation, all what I said is, this is the final structure, this is the final structure, for the final structure this is the heat of formation, for this final structure of CO2 this is the heat of formation, for the initial structure which is there this is the heat of formation, and I could get this. Therefore, when I talk in terms of rate of the chemical reaction, I cannot just say, well, the final structure is this, therefore, I work with moles and multiply moles by the heat of formation in energy or joules per kilomole or joules per kilojoules per mole and calculate this. This is not possible. I need to know the path. I need to be able to find out how the transition takes place, to be able to find out with time how it changes. Therefore, it becomes a little more complex. Therefore, we tell ourselves, well, I have to consider the molecular collisions. And why do you say molecular collisions? Well, I have methane here, I have 1 mole of methane, 1 mole of methane. If it is at ambient conditions, we said it is at standard conditions, we are doing all the problems at standard conditions. And what is going to happen at standard conditions? I react this with this, and therefore, what is going to happen? 1 mole is going to contain, we said Avogadro's number 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 molecules. This is going to contain 2 into 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 molecules. Each of the molecule must collide with each other and knock it out. That means, the collisions must be energetic. It must also have a way of impacting such that I am able to knock out the molecules. That means, the geometry of collisions is important. And I must consider all these aspects when I take a look at the rate of a reaction. I cannot just say, well, the final structure is this, and from the final structure and the initial structure, I calculate the rate of energy release. Therefore, what is it? Let me go through this example again, because we need to define something else to be able to define the rate of a reaction. Therefore, let me consider this example. Let me consider a vessel, and in this vessel, let us say I have a tank like this. In this vessel, I have 1 mole of methane over here, plus I have, let us say, methane over here, plus I have 2 moles of oxygen over here. And now I want to react it. Now I tell, well, this volume could be 1 meter cube. I also think, I do a thought experiment. I tell myself, well, I could have a much larger volume. Let us say instead of having 1 meter cube, I have, let us say, 3 meter cube of volume. I put precisely the same amount here, namely 1 mole of methane and 2 moles of oxygen. Now, in the second case, what is going to happen? The interatomic distance between the molecules is going to be larger, because the same number of moles are there. I have 6.023 into 3 times the total number of moles here. I have the same number of moles here, whereas since the volume is small, the molecules are near to each other. And mind you, the pressure and temperature here is identical to the pressure and temperature here. Since the individual molecules are near to each other, they are more likely to undergo collisions, and therefore, in the case in which I have a smaller volume, maybe the number of collisions is going to be higher, and we told collisions are required in order, let us say, collisions are required in order to strip the individual atoms and also combine with some other atoms, and therefore, the number of collisions when I have a smaller volume is higher. Therefore, maybe I have to look at something like a molecular density. That means the number of molecules per unit volume, but since I talk of moles as 6.023 into 10 to the power 23, I can also talk in terms of molar density. Instead of talking in terms of individual molecules, I say, well, for chemical reactions, since I am interested in collisions, it is important that I talk in terms of number of moles per unit volume, and this could be represented as moles per meter cube, or if it is less, I can represent it as moles per cc or centimeter cube, and that means moles per unit volume. And this moles per unit volume is given a name as concentration. Therefore, when we evaluate the energy release from a chemical reaction, we talk only in terms of moles. We talk in terms of moles of reactants, their heat of formation in the products, in the reactants. When we talk of rate of chemical reaction, we have to talk in terms of concentration of the reactants, concentration of the products if you want to go from products to this. But if you are interested in some reactants going to products, well, the concentration of reactants are necessary. Therefore, we tell ourselves, well, compared to moles, we will talk in terms of concentration. Therefore, we are also telling, well, based on simple reasoning, we told for a chemical reaction to take place, therefore, let us say a chemical reaction takes place. We again keep the same reaction in mind. We tell ourselves, well, the chemical reaction will take place depending if I have more number of collisions. That means, if CH4 hits against an oxygen more number of times, it is more likely to collide, that is collisions. Number of collisions are important. It is also important to have the energy of collisions. If the energetics of collisions is much higher, well, it can knock out the atom and maybe recombine it together. Energy of collisions is important. Well, if I have molecules which are just hitting against each other, or maybe hitting at an angle, maybe one comes like this, the other comes at an angle and they hit at an angle, maybe the geometry of hitting is important, because that is what decides how many of these molecules get out. This is known as a geometric factor. Therefore, we tell, well, based on simple reasoning, we say collisions, energy of collisions, the geometry of collisions are important, and therefore, this was something which was systematically found out by experiments, and as early as 1860 we had a law which was propounded by the chemist, which is known as law of mass action. The law of mass action tells that the rate of a chemical reaction is proportional to the active concentration of the reactants. In other words, whenever a chemical reaction takes place, the rate of the chemical reaction goes directly as the active concentration of the reactants. Rather, if we tell, well, my rate of a reaction is so much, it is proportional to the active concentration. I denote concentration by C, it is proportional to the concentration of the reactants. How do I translate it into something which is workable? Let's go back and therefore say, yes, I'm interested in a reaction, and let's put down one or two simple reactions and then see whether we can determine how to get the energy release. Well, supposing I have a reaction in which, let us say, M is some substance, gets converted into products P. I say concentration of M, I denote it by Cm, and then I say the rate of a reaction. Well, we said for reactions I must consider concentration and not moles, therefore, I say I consider dCm by dt. In this reaction, M gets consumed, P gets formed, therefore, the rate of a reaction is minus dCm by dt, because it is gradually getting consumed, and as per the law of mass action, which is based on experimental findings, it says that it is equal to a constant into the concentration of the mass. Well, this is what it says, but the law of mass action also says that the rate of a reaction is proportional, that means I have a constant here, to the active value of the concentration here, active because in some liquids and in some reactions, well, we have to consider the effective value, we will consider the concentration as it is. Therefore, we say, well, dCm by dt is the rate of a reaction, I can call this as omega, which is the rate of a reaction. And what is the rate of a reaction? Let us put now the units down. I have moles, concentration, let us say Cc is the volume into time, moles per Cc second is equal to the constant into the moles per Cc, and therefore, for this reaction the unit of the K comes out to be 1 over second, and K is known as the reaction rate constant. If K is 1 over second, let us say, see, but whenever we have been talking of reactions, we said between a fuel and an oxidizer I form products, and therefore, if I were to write an equation for fuel and products, what is it I get? Do I get exactly the same value for K, or do I get a different units for K? I need to be a little cautious here, and therefore, I say, well, previously I have been considering fuel plus oxygen or oxidizer gives me products, and now I am interested in the rate at which fuel is getting depleted. Well, the rate of a reaction is concentration of fuel divided by dt, it is minus. Well, in this case, it is equal to K into concentration of fuel. Well, the reactants are concentration of fuel and oxygen, I consider concentration of the oxygen. Therefore, the unit of K in this case is going to be, K has units of, well, in this case I have moles per Cc second divided by moles per Cc square, because K, I bring it to the denominator here, and the unit of K in this case becomes 1 over moles per Cc into second over here. Therefore, depending on the type of reaction, well, the unit of the reaction rate constant changes. If I have 3 of them, well, it is going to be 1 over moles per Cc square into second, and therefore, we call these things as order of a reaction. We say first order reaction, second order reaction. If 3 are involved, fuel plus oxygen plus something else, I say third order reaction, but we will not get into the details of these reactions, but we note, well, the reaction rate constant has different units depending on the type of reactants and the number of reactants what we have. Having said that, well, can we guess something more? What is this K? We told, well, the reaction rate constant tells me how fast or how slow a reaction progresses, how it is related to the concentration. We also know if I have more energetic material or if I have more number of collisions, well, this could change. And therefore, people have been looking on how to model K or the reaction rate constant, and therefore, let's try to build up a case for what should be the parametric formulation for K. Let us say for the present, well, I have a given volume. In this volume, which is let us say a tank or something, I have certain amount of oxygen. Let us say I have 1 mole of oxygen, I have some moles of hydrogen, some moles of oxygen. I have this mixture of gases in a particular tank. All of you know, if I have this tank which is sort of insulated, I do not heat it or I do not do anything with it, I can allow this hydrogen and oxygen, I could store it for years together, nothing is going to happen. Mind you, hydrogen is a fuel, oxygen is the oxygen oxidizer. Well, these two put together form the explosive, and therefore, this explosive gas I keep here, I can store it for years together, a reaction is not going to take place. In order that a reaction will take place in this particular substance, all what I have to do, I need either I deposit an electrical spark like in an IC engine. Well, I have petrol mixture in which in my cylinder I put an electrical spark over here, and if I put an electrical spark, that means I release some amount of energy over here. I can activate the chemical reaction and well, it will go with a bang, it will explode. Or rather, instead of putting a spark, I could also put some heat over here. Maybe I put some electrical resistance wire, I connect it to a battery over here, and then if I heat this wire, well, I start it, that means I deposit some energy. In other words, all we are telling is an explosive by itself remains fairly cool, it does not react by itself. I need something to activate it, that means I have to provide some energy which activates the reaction or which starts the chemical reaction, and the energy required to start progressing with the reaction is what we call as activation energy. Let us take another example. When we were children, what we used to do, in the market in the earlier days, we used to get some firecrackers known as percussion crackers. These percussion crackers used to be small handheld things, and what we used to do when we want to burst it, we used to hit it against the wall and it used to go with a bang. In other words, for the percussion cracker, it has some particular explosive composition. If I subject it to an impact, well, it just blows up, and this is what that means. I supply some blow or I supply some energy, and that is the activation energy. But the percussion cracker could be stored in the house for long only if it is hit against something and I transfer some energy to it, well, it blows off. Similarly, I can have, let us say, dynamite or maybe TNT example which I said in the form of rod. I could store it in a storehouse for years together, nothing is going to happen. Only thing, maybe some element of reactions take place, but it is not going to start a chemical reaction and this to explode. Therefore, we say to be able to start the reaction even in a powerful explosive or in some of these crackers or in any mixture, we need to supply some activation energy. Therefore, we say, well, to start a chemical reaction, I need activation energy, which I denote by EA. We also know if the initial temperature is higher, well, it is little easier. Therefore, the ratio of activation energy divided by temperature might be something, because if the activation energy is more, well, I am talking of one scenario. If the temperature is more, well, it is much easier to start a reaction. Well, in some cases, like let us say phosphorus. Phosphorus, it's mined and kept outside, and we will see it, by the side of the railing sometimes we see phosphorus. It is available as powder, and the moment it comes in air, it begins to glow and react. That means P2O5 is formed, that means it reacts with ambient immediately. In this case, well, the activation energy is almost 0, very small. But most of the explosive what we consider in the actual sense, like we say hydrogen, oxygen, we say different types of substances, most of the explosives which we deal with, the activation energies are quite high, typically of the order of 80,000 to something like 160,000 joules per mole. I will come back to the unit again. We tell ourselves, well, as temperature increases, the reaction can go faster, we will have to take a look at it, and therefore, we find that, well, I can have a unit like activation energy divided by the universal gas constant R naught into temperature. If the activation energy, if the unit of R naught is joules per mole Kelvin, the temperature has units of Kelvin. If the activation energy is also represented as joules per mole, well, this becomes a non-dimensional term, and we use the non-dimensional term to be able to quantify the reaction rate constant K. That means, we tell ourselves, well, K has different units depending on the order of reaction, whatever be the units, well, I can relate it to something like EA by R naught T, and the equation which does this is known as Arrhenius rate equation. Let's put that down. We tell, well, I talk in terms of Arrhenius rate equation, Arrhenius says K is equal to a constant into exponential of minus EA by R naught into T. As temperature increases, the rate constant increases, and we have this factor A which depends on the order of a reaction. It also depends on the geometry by which the angle at which the collisions takes place. Therefore, it is also known as a steric factor. It also tells you on the, it depends on the pressure and pressure to a large extent, and therefore, we say, well, K can be represented by this. And if we say, well, K is represented by this form, the rate at which a reaction takes place, let us say in general dC by dt, we already know, yes, by the law of mass action, I tell it is equal to K, maybe any reactor, C to the power m. Well, I am just considering some reactant which is being formed, I am not taking minus dC by dt, I just say the reaction rate is given by C to the power m, or where m is the number of constituents which are reacting together, maybe it is an mth order reaction, A plus B plus so on up to m. In general, most of the reactions are second order, it will be Kc to the power square. I have C plus C giving you products, and therefore, I can write the value of dC by dt, which I can say as so much moles per cc second, I denote it by omega is equal to, I write A, that is K is equal to A C to the power square into exponential of minus EA by RT. Well, this becomes the expression for the rate of a reaction, so much moles per cc into second. Well, now we have arrived through arguments using the law of mass action and the Arrhenius rate equation, saying that the rate of a reaction in moles per cc second is given by A into concentration squared into exponential. If it is a simple reaction like a single substance, like a first order reaction in which m goes to P, it could be AC into exponential. If it is third order, fourth order, it could be to the power cubed, but in general most of the reactions that we encounter are second order like AC square. Having said that, I want to explicitly determine what is the role of temperature in this. Let us do one exercise. Let us calculate the value of the reaction rate at two different temperatures and see what is the role of temperature. But mind you, we are still telling for most of the explosives which we encounter, the value of EA is a large number, and this number we said is between, let us say typically between 80,000 to let us say 80,000 to something like 160,000, the value is so much joules per mole is the value of activation energy. We will get some feel for it. But I have not told why some activation energy is required. We looked at the example, we said, well, I need to activate something. Let us try to put it graphically down. Let us say we go back to the example of methane, what we had. Let us say we have methane CH4 plus oxygen 2O2 giving me CO2 plus 2H2O. Well, can I put down how the activation energy is there? Well, initially I have the substance somewhere over here. The value of the heat of formation of CH4 and 2O2 is somewhere over here, heat of formation of the reactants. Well, some energy gets liberated. We worked out the energy which gets liberated after the reaction. Let us say this is the time, that is let us say time, that means positive time, that means this coordinate is progress of reaction. Well, this is the energy of the reaction, energy we say. Initial energy is the value of the reactants what we have, total heat of formation of the reactants. Once the chemical reaction is over, well, the energy could be over here, we say energy of the products, heat of formation of the products is over here. And what happens? Well, from reaction it comes to this, that means this is the way the reaction progresses, this is what we think. But we told ourselves, well, I can store this indefinitely, unless I give some energy it does not get started. Therefore, if this reaction has to take place, well, I have to supply some activation energy, some value of EA which starts the reaction, and then it comes over here, and therefore, this is the value of activation energy. That means, I need to pump in some energy to start the reaction. Once the reaction gets started, well, it comes to the products, it comes back over here, I get the thing. Therefore, the heat liberated in this particular reaction, if I were to put it on this plot, I am going to get the heat liberated is equal to the heat of formation of the products minus heat of reaction with a negative sign. Well, this is the heat of the reaction over here, this is the value of the heat of reaction. But if I have the products and I want to form the reactants, well, I have to have a activation energy of this value which is equal to EA plus HR such that it can come to products over here, which means the reverse reaction is very difficult, and I always get the forward reaction since the activation energy is smaller. In some cases, well, the magnitude of the reverse reactions can have values of activation energies which are comparable, but most of the reactions have forward activation energies to be much smaller than the reverse values of the activation energies. Well, this is the way we look at the progress of a reaction. This is the expression for the rate of a reaction. Let us quickly find out what is the effect of temperature on the rate of a reaction. Let us quickly do that, and then we go back and try to find out. Our mission, let us not forget, our mission is to be able to calculate what is the rate of energy release in a reaction. We have still not come to that, we are still talking of rate of a reaction. Let us say I am interested in omega at a temperature of, let us say, 500 degrees centigrade, and how it changes when the temperature is, let us say, 1000 degrees centigrade. Excuse me, I have the activation energy of this reaction. Well, we say activation energy is of the order of 100,000, which is of the order which we said is so much joules per mole. Therefore, at 500 degrees centigrade, the rate of a reaction omega is equal to, as per what we wrote down, is equal to A into C to the power, let us say mth order m over here, into exponential of minus EA, that is activation energy 100,000, divided by R naught. The value of universal gas constant is 8.314 joules per mole Kelvin, into 500 plus 273 in Kelvin is equal to 773 Kelvin. This is the value, so much we have moles per cc second. And if I have the temperature at 1000 degrees centigrade, well, I similarly have maybe omega at, this is at 500, omega at 1000 degrees centigrade, the 500 degrees centigrade is equal to ACM into exponential. I just do the same thing again, minus the activation energy is 100,000 divided by 8.314 into 1000 plus 273 Kelvin, 1273 Kelvin, so much moles per cc second. If I were to find the ratios of this, maybe reaction rate constant at 1000 degrees centigrade divided by the reaction rate constant at 500 degrees centigrade, what is the value I get? I get exponential of this divided by exponential of this, because I presume that the concentrations of the reactants are still the same to begin with, and therefore, I say that the rate of this reaction, if I were to simplify it, it comes to be equal to exponential of minus 1000, that is 100,000 divided by 8.314 joules per mole Kelvin into 1273 divided by exponential of minus activation energy 100,000 into 8.314 into 773, and this gives me a number equal to exponential of minus 9.45 divided by exponential of minus 15.56, which gives a value of something like 450. That means, we have doubled the temperature has increased twice, but the reaction rate has increased something like almost 2 to 3 orders of magnitude greater, 450 times. Therefore, the influence of temperature on a reaction rate is very fast, and this is why we are always worried. You know, if you go back to the explosion involving ammonium nitrate in the hull of a ship in the Texas city, well, you have ammonium nitrate. Initially it was stored well. The temperature slightly increased because of some incipient reactions, and as temperature increase, well, the reaction rate goes up, and when reaction rate goes up, well, the temperature further increases, and if the temperature further increases, well, the rate again goes up, and it's sort of explosive, you know, very rapidly it goes up, and therefore, all the reactions which we consider will have such a trend, namely for changes in temperature, small changes in temperature I have, or small increase in temperature, the reaction rate goes up enormously. Well, with this background of maybe the temperature effect on reaction, using the Arrhenius law, using the concept of activation energy, some energy is required to start a reaction. Let us go back and try to find out what will be the type, can I get a value for energy release in a reaction, and if so, how should it behave? Well, we come to this part now. We tell ourselves, well, I have calculated already omega, I know how to determine it, is equal to so much moles per cc second. I know this. But you know, we must also remember, I have already calculated HR, which we can say is equal to Q, which is equal to the energy released in joules in a reaction. And in a reaction, how did we calculate? We have some moles of the reactant giving you product, HR was for the total number of moles. I tell myself, well, instead of writing HR, I write Q as the energy released per mole of the reactants. Therefore, I say joules per mole is the energy which is released. I know how to calculate this, I have done it, I have done several model problems, I know how to calculate this. Therefore, now if I take this particular value and say, well, omega is moles per cc second, I multiply by Q, what is it I get? Omega into Q gives me moles per cc second into the energy released. Normally we denote the energy released in kilojoules per mole. Mole and mole gets cancelled, and omega, the product omega Q tells me how much energy is released per unit volume per second. Or rather, if I can multiply this by the volume, that means I have a volume of mixture which is V, and I know, well, the rate of this that which I reacts, I know the value of omega, and we said omega is equal to A c to the power m exponential of minus activation energy divided by R naught T over here, I know this. Well, I can calculate the energy released in this volume, I know per unit volume, and therefore, I say, well, the energy released per unit volume is omega q, and therefore, the total energy release rate is equal to omega q into volume, which I call as kg cc second multiplied by volume in cc. Well, this cancels, I have kilojoules per second, and this is how we calculate the rate of energy release. We tell ourselves, well, q is equal to, therefore, equal to omega into the energy release in the reaction, which we calculated per mole based on heat of formation, into omega, and therefore, to determine the rate of energy release, since we are talking rate of energy release, let us put a dot over here. We are talking of dq by dt, or if you want, you can still use the q, provided you do not confuse. We can still say q dot or q dot over here is equal to omega qv, which is the rate at which energy is released in a particular reaction. Now, I want to be able to relate this heat release with the parameters over here. Therefore, let us quickly do that, but now I am in business. I now know, well, I know how to calculate the rate of energy release in kilojoules per second, and this is what we set out to do. Let us go further, let us try to see whether I can model it in some way, I can find out explicitly whether the shape of the curve, we said q dot, or you remember we started with E dot, whether it should be like this, whether it will be like this, how should the shape change? Let us try to find out how the shape of the heat release will look like, maybe as a function of time, we would like to find it out, and therefore, let us proceed further. Therefore, all we have to do is substitute whatever we have been doing one into the other, and therefore, we say, well, the heat release in a heat release rate now, energy release rate, which we say is q dot, is equal to q into, we say that the value, what we say is omega, and what is omega? Omega is equal to a c to the power m exponential of minus E a by R t into volume, so much joules or kilojoules per second is the rate. Now, we know if I look at this particular expression, I can also tell myself, yes, the rate of heat release depends on the concentration, and how the concentration will change. Supposing I have a chemical reaction, maybe the reactant initially, let us say fuel, has an initial concentration CO, and what happens? The fuel gets consumed over the time of the reaction, and ultimately when the reaction gets completed, the concentration of fuel, that is so much moles per cc to begin with, it has a value, high value, it has not reacted, and maybe it progresses, and at large time it becomes 0. This is when the chemical reaction gets over. This is the type of variation of, let us say, C at any time. Therefore, we have the C at any time, this is the value, maybe C at a later time comes to 0, and therefore, we find, well, you know, C naught, that is to begin with the concentration is C naught, it becomes 0. This is the way the concentration of the fuel will keep changing. How should we think the temperature could change? We need to get some idea on this. Well, if this is the way the concentration, the temperature of the products in the reaction will also change with respect to time. Initially, the temperature is T naught, the ambient temperature. The chemical reaction starts. If the chemical reaction starts, well, the temperature begins to build up. Maybe when the chemical reaction gets over, the temperature reaches a maximum value, let us say Tm. To begin with, it is T0, and then the chemical reaction will go like this and reach a maximum. Perhaps this is the way it should proceed according to what we think, because initially something gets started and it reaches a maximum value over here. Therefore, is it possible for this particular reaction, can I say what must be the shape of the curve? That means, I am interested in finding out how should the shape of q dot, that is the rate of energy release, which I say as q dot, how should it change with respect to time? Is it going to be something like this? Is it going to be something like this? Is it going to be something like this? This is what I am interested in finding out. Therefore, let us try to solve this equation to be able to give this shape. Yes, we recognize the concentration of the reactants keep decreasing, the temperature of the products keep increasing. This is what the temperature of the products is. Therefore, let us try to see whether I can solve that equation. Let us quickly do that. Let's make the problem a little simpler. We say, well, I have a certain volume of the substance over here, that is the substance which is reacting. Let it be of density rho. Therefore, rho v is the mass over here. Let the specific heat, this is a constant volume which reacts and explodes. Therefore, the specific heat is Cv. Therefore, we tell the mass is equal to rho v into the specific heat. And what happens? What is the maximum temperature reached? We say it could be Tm, the initial temperature is T0, and this is the total energy what is available to you. And what is the total energy? If the concentration initially is C0 per unit volume, I have volume here, this is the total number of moles. If the total number of moles react and per mole of reactant, if I form the heat liberated is Q joules, well, I can say rho v Cv into Tm minus T0 is equal to C0 V into Q, as long as maybe as concentration changes, I have heat which is getting, this is the total heat of the reaction which is equal to HR per mole over here. If in the same reaction, maybe this is the final when all the energy is released, because at finally I get the value of Tm. Let us take a look at this graph again. Finally, I have a temperature. Finally, all the concentration is over at the value of T, C0 becomes 0. Therefore, C0 minus 0 is C0, at which I have the maximum temperature. If I am interested at some intermediate value, at which let us say the concentration is C over here at some time T. Well, the change in concentration is from C0 to C. Therefore, the heat liberated is going to be C0 minus C into the volume, which is the change in moles, into Q, that is the heat liberated, and at this particular time let the temperature be T. Therefore, I can write the second equation as, well, I have rho v into Cv into, I get now my temperature is T minus T naught is equal to, I have C0 minus C is the change in concentration into volume, change the number of moles which have reacted, and Q is the amount of heat generated per mole which reacts, and therefore, this becomes my equation 2 for an intermediate stage. And I keep telling this because to be able to calculate the rate, we need the path. Therefore, I am looking at some intermediate value. I take this is my initial value, and if I take the ratio of these two, that means I divide equation 2 by equation 1. What is it I get? I get C0 minus C divided by C0 is equal to, I come and take a look at this. I say I get T minus T0 divided by Tm minus T0, or rather if I were to simplify this, I get the value of C by C0 is equal to, I have C by C0, I take on the right hand side, this is what I am writing, is equal to 1 minus the value of T minus T0 divided by Tm minus T0, and this is equal to the value Tm minus T0 minus T plus T0, T0 and T0 gets cancelled, and it gives me the value of Tm minus T divided by Tm minus T0. This is the value of C by C0. Therefore, in the particular reaction in which I had concentration at any particular time, I can go and substitute C is equal to the initial concentration into Tm minus T divided by Tm minus T0, and let us do this on the for the equation which we have already written over here. In other words, I am substituting the value of C by the value which we just obtained, Q is equal to Q into A into, I get now C0, that is the initial concentration, to the value m. I still assume that I have an mth order reaction, that means number of things are reacting over here, into Tm minus T divided by Tm minus T0 to the power m into I get exponential of minus Ea by, mind you, it should have been R0 over here, universal gas constant T into V over here, and this becomes my rate of energy release. Now, let us just take a look at how to represent this equation. Well, we find that when the reaction is over and the temperature is Tm, well, I do not get any perceptible heat release over here because Tm minus T is 0, the heat release is 0. And how should this relation look like? Well, let us first plot the value of T versus time over here. That means we said, well, the reaction will get started and go like this. I get the, when the reaction is over, I get the value of Tm. Let us therefore plot this as a function of T before I can put it over here. If I plot it as a function of T, what is it I get? When the value I have Tm, it comes to 0. Initially, when T is small, the reaction rate is 0, and therefore, the reaction goes like this and comes back and comes over here. If I have an activation energy which is negligibly small, like we said phosphorus immediately reacts, in which case Ea is very small, and if Ea is very small, well, this drops off and the rate of a reaction is going to be something like this. It will go come over here and come over here. If the activation energy now becomes a larger number, that means I am talking of maybe 50,000, 60,000, well, the curve shifts, this becomes dominant, the rate of energy release goes like this and it comes like this. If my activation energy is still higher, what is going to happen? Well, Ea is still higher, maybe this pulls down initially quite a bit, but when temperature increases it goes up, it comes like this over here. Therefore, we find that as the activation energy increases, that means I am talking of temperature, temperature is proportional to time, temperature versus the rate of heat release Q. It seems to have a signature that as activation energy increases, I start slowly and all of a sudden I begin to have a spurt in the reaction. That means my energy release period is taking place over here, and this is the duration of energy release. The initial period I do not have much energy release, but if the activation energy is small, initially itself I start getting some energy release, and the type of energy release therefore, what we are saying now is depends on factors like this. We tell ourselves for most of the explosives in which the activation energy is large, the rate of energy release with respect to time q dot as a function of time, the reaction starts off rather slowly, takes some time to build up, and you have a peak and it comes down over here. If I have further increase in activation energy, well, it comes over here, peaks over here and comes down over here. Therefore, but if the activation energy is small, what is going to happen? Well, the reaction goes like this. Now, if I now put what is the energy effective duration of energy release over here? The effective duration of energy release is somewhere over here to here, and this is the characteristic time of the chemical reaction. If I look when the activation energy is still higher, we say this is for increasing values of activation energy. Well, the duration is now even smaller. That means this is the value of the characteristic time of chemical reaction, and therefore, we find that as the activation energy increases, the spurt in the rate of reaction goes up, and what we get is we say, well, the time of the chemical reaction gets reduced and the rate of chemical reaction goes up. Therefore, we now have a feel for the rate at which a chemical reaction proceeds with respect to time. That means the effective energy duration is over here rather than from here to here, because in the initial phase it is quite slow, and with this in mind, we will now take a look. We have now done the energy release, we know how much it is. We have a feeling for the rate of energy release. We will put both the things together and develop a theory for, let us say, explosion, or a thermal theory for explosion. And this is what I will do in the next class. Well, thank you then.